Hello, and thanks for joining us for Season 2, Episode 3 of the Cerulean Skies RPG podcast. This is a weekly podcast aimed at the myriad of RPG subjects that we at Cerulean Skies are passionate about. It's aimed to be a mix of produced podcasting and a live stream discussion, and we always encourage folks to engage with these talks, whether it be in the live chat, on Discord, or through other aspects of social media. And we are in the season 2 still, so we're still going a little hot with that. So this has been fun to bring this stuff back. But I'm your host, Joey, and today I'm joined by Justin.
Hello.
And who is our resident mecha dad, and then our also resident game dad, Gordon.
What's going on, y'all?
And as we always try to
double game dads,
2 dads in here, and I'm not, so I need somebody to make me a daddy. That's just what we're here for.
By the end of the podcast, Joey will be a dad.
Right. Whether with somebody here or
with our powers combined,
right,
we will make him Zaddy.
Finally, the Z. And Gordon, you're new to the show, so you've watched so many episodes actually, so you know how the flow goes. But basically, the way that the show works, or at least the podcast works, is that at first we talk about some of our favorite RPGs to get a feel for each other's preferences and tastes, and then we dive into a main topic. And our main topic tonight is research. Okay, sorry, don't leave yet, but do we research the RPGs that we play? We'll touch on our methods for doing so. So like the way that we discuss games and the way we apply outside or inside knowledge on modern titles versus retro ones, or just in general, that kind of thing. We'll talk a little bit about guide usage, the Wikipedia dumps, all that kind of stuff. But basically, prep work or intermediate work. So we'll figure it out. But before we get started, tell us about your internet presence, Justin and Gordon. Gordon, we'll start with you because you're new to the show.
I appreciate that. First, I just got to say, first time, long time. But for real though, I have been watching the show for a while. Glad to see that you're starting this back up and glad to be a part of it. But as far as like my internet presence, right? You can find me probably on twitter.com making bad tweets. I have a YouTube. I don't publish on there very often. I take clips from D&D campaigns that I'm in, and I use them either as like teach tape or just funny moments or like how to, whether it's DMing or role playing. But yeah, otherwise I'm usually mostly on Twitter, at GameDad, VII, so like Roman numeral 7. But posting like gaming clips. I try to do like a daily intro / title screen of like an iconic video game that I try to post every day. That's fun, and usually just yapping about Evilise and Matsuno games.
Hell yeah. Love my boy on Twitter. One of the only reasons why I stick with that site, honestly.
I'm sitting here on this podcast reminiscing about y'all's tweets because I got rid of mine.
That's right.
I miss you dearly.
Nobody liked my tweets as much as you, Justin, and I
had you on lock, but the doom scrolling got to me.
I understand. I get it. It's a shitty platform now.
It is.
Like getting into.
We should make a new platform.
Cerulean Skies, hop on.
Twitter 2.
Twitter 2,
yeah. Electric Boogaloo, yeah.
Finally. But yeah, tell us about your internet presence besides that.
Yeah, I used to be the resident mecha dad on Twitter, but now nothing left, so it's gone. Got rid of that, but I am on Discord on a regular basis and pretty active in a couple of communities over there. Not a Discord mod or anything like that. Can't put that out on the table. But yeah, that's about it. Just on the internet these days, talking to folks. Try not to get sad.
Fair enough. I got a question for the dads here too.
Uh-oh.
Reddit mod son or Discord mod daughter?
Discord mod.
My daughter.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. I,
Yeah.
Yeah, I realized while I was saying it that there's a very clear choice there.
After the first option, I was like, man, whatever he says gotta be better than
Yeah,
Secret third option.
fair.
Secret third option. Non-binary pro boards moderator.
Oh shit! You know what? That's deranged. So let's go with Discord mod daughter. Or
Okay.
yeah,
All
I
right.
still have to choose that. Yeah, pro boards. I don't trust anyone. I'm sorry.
Yeah. The only pro boards anybody even uses these days are that one Russian torrent site. We don't talk about that one Russian torrent site.
That one Russian torrent site. I don't know. I think. By the way, for folks, we can't. I don't. Actually, funny enough, Gordon made a tweet about playing Xenogears because he's playing it for the first time, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. And he told me about it, and I looked at his tweet, and there's like a bunch of people basically accusing him of stealing the video game and like not really playing it or questioning his authenticity. Yeah.
Put me in bind.
Yeah.
So that sucks, but So not to support emulation, but use archive.org for all your needs. That's the move. Anyway, speaking of archive.org, let's dig into the archive and let's talk about some of our favorite RPGs. So Justin, you were on here before, obviously, like we said. So maybe give us a little bit of a refresh about what some of your favorites are, and you are contractually obligated to tell us one good or favorite game that you've played since you've last been on here.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start with that.
Right.
I just finished Unicorn Overlord.
Ooh.
And that game was a very strong, almost 9, but an 8 out of 10. The only reason I wouldn't have rated it a little bit higher is that I felt like it was too much of an homage to Fire Emblem in some cases.
Yeah.
There was so much there, but it was good. I loved it. Still not perfect. Still not 9 out of 10 worthy. And I am currently playing through Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance because I loved the first iteration of that game, even though it ran like absolute horrendous dog shit on the Switch. And the exact thing that I asked for was, hey, can they just re-release this on something that would play this at something more than 20 frames per second and make the Nahabino look as truly beautiful as he is? Just let that flowing blue hair look good and not muddy garbage.
As somebody who just implemented the dog cam on this stream, dog shit is an offensive term.
Okay, good point. I understand. Also, I didn't know that was live, and I saw that picture, and I was like, oh, it's a cool thing to have on there, but no, that's live. I didn't know that.
He's been restless though. He keeps moving. Now he's over here now. I don't know if you guys can.
Yeah, I've got a little gremlin down here eating some food
RDS
as well.
Restless dog syndrome.
Yeah.
Restless dog.
Fuck off, man.
Wow, that is powerful.
So, real quick about Unicorn Overlord, because I want to see how this kind of relates to your favorite. So, obviously, there's a huge influence from Matsuno games, specifically the Ogre Battle titles. Maybe not story-wise. I think you hit the nail on the head by saying that Unicorn Overlord is very emulous or derivative of Fire Emblem stories, but the gameplay is obviously spiritually successive of Ogre Battle. So
right.
I'm wondering if any of the Matsuno or Ogre games fall into your top titles.
Not yet, because I haven't played that new remake, and I said that I was going to, and I'm gonna try to do so this year. I'm surprised that I didn't put Final Fantasy Tactics on my list.
Ooh.
But I mean, I'll just go through the list that I have here. Tales of the Abyss for the PS2, Suikoden 5 for the PS2, Radiata Stories for the PS2, Shin Megami Tensei Digital Devil Saga 1, not 2, for the PS2, Valkyrie Profile 1 for the PlayStation 1, Breath of Fire 4 for the PS1, Chrono Cross for the PS1, and then you get to Fire Emblem 4 for the Super Nintendo, Fire Emblem 7 for the GBA, and the Xenoblade Chronicles trilogy. All three of them. I'm never going to separate those games. They are a trio of games. I do not care about the differences between the three of them. They are a cohesive piece of happiness in my soul. And finally, I have to throw out. I had originally put here Grand Blue Fantasy because I had played it for like 8 years, but I'm changing it to my current brain rot of Limbus Company, which is one of the most incredible stories I think I've read in the last like 5 or 10 years.
Whoa, is that the sequel to Limp Bizkit?
Oh hell yeah, bro!
I gotta ask you a little bit more about that, and as we go on a little bit later. I think that the topic at hand could actually, the concept of a game like Grand Blue Fantasy could work itself into there. So I'm stoked to explore that. But real quick, not real quick, because I want to hear a little bit more about your preferences live on the podcast stream. Gordon, tell me about some of your favorites. I mean, obviously the 7 in your name, bro. We're not even gonna mention the elephant in the room, but yeah, let them rip.
Yeah.
Fantasy 8, right?
Yeah, exactly. So 7, 8, 9. So 7 was one of my first JRPGs I ever played, and that made a big impact on me as far as my taste going forward, as far as the way I like narrative in games. So that's why you get the game to add 7. Final Fantasy Tactics, though, is actually my favorite Final Fantasy game, and I am Matsuno pilled, as Joey would say. And I was containing all my excitement when you said you played Unicorn Overload because that was like, you have the ogre battle system plus the gambit system. Any game that has like a deep mechanic system like that, I get really hooked on. The story was plain right, bland, you know. It was good. It was just very safe. I'll say that. It was very safe.
Yeah.
But that's what kept it from being like an all-timer for me. But to go back
especially
to
considering, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, go ahead.
Especially considering that their previous game is
like
one of the best sci-fi stories I think I've ever witnessed in my life. Yeah,
or, 13 Sentinels.
Aegis Rim 13 Sentinels.
Yeah. I need I need to play that. But yeah, that's
the story of that game is unexplainable, but also almost perfect. So please enjoy it when you do.
I have it. So it's in the plastic, ready to be unsealed and ready to go.
Yeah.
But for games I grew up on, just RPGs and JRPGs. Lunar on PS1 was a big favorite of mine. Grandia series 1, 2, and 3. I have a Suikoden on there. 3 was my favorite.
Wait.
Nice.
Walk that back. Say it again.
Is it Suikoden or Suikoden?
It's
I hear
Suikoden.
Suikoden.
Yeah.
Suikoden 3.
Yeah.
So I like.
At least you're not me. Back when I was in like high school, I would call it Suikoden.
Suikoden. Well, name mispronounced the third one. I like.
It's like the Dark Souls text. Name mispronounced.
Vagrant Story, Sword of Mana, GBA. I too love Fire Emblem, Blazing Blade, Sacred Stones, Path of Radiance, and Awakening are some of my favorites.
Absolutely.
I dabbled also in like some old like Heroes Might Magic 7 on the PC. Divinity Original Sin 2 I think is one of my favorite RPGs. Obviously Baldur's Gate 3, Dragon Age Origins, Radiated Stories, we share that. That was a favorite of mine also. And
love kicking people in town.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kicking people until they fight me.
And they make the funny noises too, which is great. The Banner Saga trilogy, I love that as well. Mass Effect trilogy. I have a nice mix of Western RPGs and JRPGs to my repertoire.
Hell yeah, Divinity. Oh, what's up, Shashi? How you doing? And by the way, usually with the podcast, I try not to actually talk to chat too much, but chat does field good questions, and so if you guys ever have any questions that you want to or topics that you'd like to see us touch on during the show, please fucking drop it in, or else it's just gonna be Onyx and I talking about Saga the whole time, which is fine, I think anyway. But that's just me. I like to isolate my audience, but yeah, all bangers, man. I'm not a huge Radiata Stories fan, but if you like kicking NPCs, hop on Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, The Crystal Bearers, because holy shit, you can absolutely abuse NPCs in that game, quite unlike any other game I've ever played. You just hit that Unreal Engine physics, and it's uncapped, and you can do a lot of stuff. Anyway, that game is Kino, and I did not know Sword of Mana was that high for you, dude. That's crazy. I respect it.
Yeah, I actually got in trouble because of Sword of Mana. I was living with my mom in an apartment at the time, and I went to the apartment's office, and I printed out the entire GameFAQs guide
Oh, I remember the story.
on their printer, and my mom got a letter about me using up all the printer paper in their office, and said if I did that again, she'd have to start buying the paper for them. So yeah, I got a strong talking to from Sword of Mana.
Incredible.
Yeah, that one's kind of burned in your memory there for that.
Hell yeah, man. And we do have these dog redeems. I don't have the dog. I'm not going to switch to the dog camera on here because of the disruptive nature of the podcast, but you will get a little dog treat.
Yeah. Onyx, you said the best part of Radiata Stories is when you kick somebody and they fucking destroyed you. Yeah, if you did that to like just one of the random old people on the street, he just ended up being a level 90 old sword master. He just absolutely destroyed you in 3 hits. That was just...
Yeah.
So what actually took that concept and did it pretty well was Octopath. Because Octopath lets you basically do the same kind of concept. It's just like a little bit more... It's a little overly polished the way that they do it. But it is interesting.
Right. Suikoden took it's not Suikoden. Radiata Stories took the Suikoden kind of sauce as far as the recruiting a bunch of people, and then also gave me the split decision making of whether you could do plot A or plot B throughout the game, and I really like that. So not only are you going to send me on a recruiting Pokemon type where I collect party members, but I can do it for a route A and a route B, have completely different narrative choices too. So that's what that game got so high for me. Is
I feel that
it was really unique with that.
I love a Tri-Ace. I love a Tri-Ace 6 out of 10. I gotta, like, no joke, I do like Tri-Ace.
The Tri-Ace 6 out of 10 is generally better than other possible 8 or 9 out of 10 in some cases.
Right, you gotta grade it on a curve. They're definitely, Tri-Ace is definitely graded on a curve, and there's no way that Tri-Ace doesn't work that curve, because no company... I just don't understand this, how they still stay in business without being sex slaves. You know what I'm saying? I've mentioned this before. But like all the games that they've put out, like especially in the last couple of years, have not been like huge commercial successes, and especially Star Ocean 5. And the fact that they still make games and whatever is kind of awesome, and I'm here for it. We cannot let Tri-Ace die, because if Tri-Ace dies, it's over.
Yes, correct.
That's also, like the silver of JRPGs.
Right. Right. Yeah, dude.
Makes sense.
Dorman, yeah, exactly.
I just don't want them to go down the same road as Deep Silver. That's all I need.
That's yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but all bangers. I love talking. You guys are both PS2 pilled, I'm noticing.
Oh, absolutely PS2 pilled.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that. I love a lot of PS2 games, but I think PS2 games for me, and I've talked a bit about this in this podcast before, are often like a little harder for me to get into these days. And I think it's because of my patience. I'm just...
Yeah, if I had tried to play Tales of the Abyss on original hardware again as an adult, I probably would have died.
Oh, dude, that and Xenosaga. Fuck.
Yes.
Gordon, did you ever play Xenosaga?
One. I played one,
Okay.
and I plan on replaying one, and then playing 2 and 3 in the near future here after I finish the new Gears.
Well,
But
dude, let
Use
me.
use cheat engine on
Nice.
Xenoblade 2.
cheat
On
engine.
Xenosaga 2.
Yeah,
Just use
yeah.
it. Just do it. Just just go through the game. Enjoy the story.
Well, dude, Gordon, if you don't
Disregard
pay
combat.
$450 for Xenosaga 3 to play it on original hardware, I don't think that you've actually played the video game there, fella.
I saw that
Got an
post and I'm
asterisk.
not even on Twitter.
Got an asterisk next to it. I completely agree about the PS2. I think one of the best things as a 33-year-old is that when I'm replaying these games, instead of pulling out the PS2 and hooking it up and spending all that time, like emulation, being able to, I believe you did a podcast episode on this in season 1, where it's talking about is the best way to play older RPGs emulating, because you have the fast forward, the rewind, the save states. I can't imagine this day and age replaying those games new and having it to be like that. And I know like this when I was PS2 age, playing PS2 for the first time, kids these days that age would not at all stand for waiting that long for.
There's a level of patience that
Yeah,
is no longer present in
no, it
the
would
generation.
not work at
Yeah.
all. So it's I'm glad we've come a long way from there, and I love to see more efforts of taking older games and bringing them to modern, like Jeanne d'Arc with on the PSN getting brought to it, and with all the trophy support, and I believe it has fast forward, rewind, and save state.
Wow.
Um, Keep bringing those games to modern consoles, add those features in there, and you will earn folks' dollar. They don't have to pay $450 for it. They don't have to download it from a website. They can buy it directly from you with those features, and they will love it. They will share it online. Other friends will see it. They'll buy it. It's just keep doing that going
Yeah.
forward. These two.
First off, I want to say that I got like a heartstring swell when you mentioned the past content, Gordon. The fact that you referenced something because you actually watched it and listened to it, and that like that made me so happy. Like that.
Honestly based.
Oh, I thought you were going American football with that. I thought you were going. Honestly, I can't remember my teenage. Anyway, sorry. Not everyone listens to Midwest emo. I forget this quite often, but.
And I live in the Midwest and I'm not even there yet.
Bro, you're
so weird.
No, you don't count. You are in a different foreign land. Yeah, you are a foreign land, Southern Illinois. No, that you are not in a real place. You are in like.
I am 4 hours away from the Midwest emo house.
God, and that's so far south to me too. That's like 3 hours south to me. Jesus.
Yeah. Closer to it than you are.
Right. Well, true. No. Wait, Champagne's like a 2-hour drive, maybe 2:15, maybe. Damn, I don't know.
Wait.
About that long, about 2:15, up to 3 hours, maybe. I don't know. It's been a while since I go fuck things up again.
I'm mid like y'all, but I'm just mid-Atlantic. I'm not Midwest. So
Midwest India. Oh, dude. Oh, I'm sorry. I try not to respond to chat too much in this, but Midwest India is insane. That's okay. Oh my God. And he's with 99 other followers too. Thank you, Shashi. Anyway, but thank you for that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Captain Howdy, just to let you know, I do win when it comes to proximity to the Midwest emo house. Okay. I am 1 hour and 15 minutes away.
Oh, never mind. So you're way closer. Okay, fair enough. Fair. We've established that the cred is. I bow to the man with the higher cred, and that's just how it goes. But I do. Before we switch over to the big topic here, I do want to say that I want to address something in chat that was said. Do RPGs as a genre really benefit from save states like other genres, though? And I feel like there is such a good topic there because if you look at a lot of PC RPGs, specifically Western ones, but there's a lot of JRPGs as well. So you're looking at PC 88, PC 98 games, even, as far back as Ultima or Wizardry, you can save so often in those games. You write that shit to a floppy, you get a floppy, you
Yep.
write that shit on it. And
Yep.
so a game like Ease, where you can save at any point, almost to the detriment to it. You can save at any point, except like in the middle of a boss battle or whatever, is a very big PC RPG thing. So I think it depends on the context of the game. I mean, even something like SMT5, where you can basically save at any point, right? Compared to Persona 3, or even the older Persona games where you need like a typical save point, it changes the
Actual
way
save point.
Right. It changes the dynamic and the flow of the game. So it depends on the game and what the context of being able to use a save state is, because I think that relates directly to the design philosophy behind some game dev stuff. I mean,
And it absolutely correlates to the current landscape of gaming.
Yep. And also,
Yeah.
as a outside of game design, right? As a user, as a quality of life thing, it's huge because as a dad, there's times where I have to put the game down very fast and in a hurry, and sometimes I got to shut it down. And if I can't save it, and I have to, I'm not going to leave my console. This isn't, a tank PS1 that I can just leave on for 5 days straight
Right.
and not worry about it. I don't want my consoles or my computer running constantly. I don't want my panels on for that long, all sorts of stuff. So being able to just save state, cut it off, or suspend or whatever, it's a huge quality of life thing for someone. Now, when I was younger and saves weren't built like that in the games, and I had to save at a save point, didn't really matter. But I used to get yelled at by mom and dad. They'd, dinner's ready, like, hold on just a minute, and then you get your ass kicked because you're up here still playing the game and your dinner's getting cold because you're stuck in a boss fight and you don't want to leave it on because your pops. That's like leaving a light switch on. They'll get pissed at you for wasting electricity. So it's not like
gone are the days in which, like, I have a specific story about this, is that I had a Dragon Warrior 1 NES cartridge that the internal battery on it did not work.
Oh.
So you could never have a saved game. But my brothers and I, we persisted. And we simply had a constant, and like the buttons on the front were broken. So unless the reset button was unless the power button was held into the Nintendo itself, it would turn off by itself. So we had to rig it, put a bunch of tape on it, and leave it on the TV with the TV off, but the console still running in order for us to continue playing the game the next day. And that would never have to happen for me again. It's a fond memory, but not something that I want to have to experience again.
Right. And
like walking a mile in the snow up the hill to school.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is like our own fault for not taking care of things. I had a couple situations like that too. My PS1 I didn't take care of amazingly well, and it had some issues with running games, and it was like a huge thing where I have to like basically pray that it even turned on and all that kind of stuff. But but yeah, so with no segue whatsoever, however, though, well, actually, let's see how we could work it in, because if we're talking older games, right, I feel like for the most part, if you're going into an older game, if I say to Gordon, hey Gordon, why don't you play this video game Shin Megami Tensei 2 for the Super Famicom home entertainment system, you're going to be like, oh, hey, I've heard about this series. It has a bit of notoriety, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe I heard it's kind of tough. Let me look it up. Let me look up stuff about it, et cetera, et cetera. So with that, I want to kind of segue into our sponsor, Raycon. Yes, exactly, Onyx. But also segue into the episode topic here is like researching what we might think is the right way to play or the right way to learn information about a video game or specifically RPGs. Because remember, this is the RPG podcast. When we talk about games on this podcast, we're always trying to speak in the context of role-playing games. Anyway, but the broad strokes question here is how much, if any, do you guys research RPGs before playing them? And now this could mean, this could and should have two major interpretations of what the term research means. Let's define our terms. So the first one would be research as in, what do you think of academically? Reading a wiki, preloading a guide, having it ready to go, asking for advice, social media, posting on social media, doing a deep dive. And then, the second facet would be like doing a deep dive, tracing the artistic or production lineage of an RPG, exploring the credits and the folks who worked on the game, looking at studios and publishers and historical context, right? So the academic versus the, I'll just, for lack of a better term in the moment, mechanical. So I'll start with you, Justin. How much research do you do before playing an RPG or during an RPG?
Yeah, so I'll say this. My aspect on this has changed over the years, and I like to think that it has changed for the better, especially considering like my childhood and stuff like that. But I think this is going to sound really silly. I think the way that I was raised also made me still appreciate art at a younger age, and I did know the names of the people that made like the Final Fantasy games. We all knew the names of Nobuo Uematsu, Hironobu Sakaguchi. Like we knew those, but it was basically only a Final Fantasy when I was a kid. But as I got older, I started to appreciate like understanding that Matsuda is incredible, or Yoshinori Mitsuda is the best video game music composer of all time. I love you, Nobuo Uematsu. I literally gave him a high five, but I still love Mitsuda a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at, I was a god dang it kid growing up. Like if I was playing a JRPG, I was playing it to completion. So I was looking up the guides. I was going to game FAQs. I was on those message boards talking about strategies. And I was able to spend so much more time on a game specifically and having to dive through a bunch of different resources to find the mechanical knowledge about the game. And being the JRPG kid that I was, some of these, as you said, are like 90-hour-long games where you're printing 150 pages of a game FAQ, and it's such an idiosyncratic time of the 90s and early 2000s, saying I'm going to the library with $20 or like $10 out of change that you picked up, so you can go to the library and print out a bunch of stuff at the library and put it in a 3-ring binder with the sheet protectors, just being able to flip it and have it double paged and everything. We just went hard. We went hard, and we didn't have to, but we did. And now, as an adult, I generally yearn to know more about what these teams are. If I find that I sit down and start playing a game and something clicks for me immediately, that's when I go into full deep dive mode, see what this person did before, what are they famous for, who do they work with, what is their previous stuff that they did. Whereas back in the day, it was just a very good appreciation of the big name people. But now as an adult, there's that deep-seated appreciation of the people that work on games. Because making games is hard.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to experientially contextualize the concept of what research meant back in the day versus what it means now for us elder millennials, especially. And it's funny because I had a completely opposite experience. Like I didn't understand the concept of a studio or like creatives working on a game until much later in life, which is perhaps stupid of me. But I'm also gonna blame my dad for that because he had no idea either. Like he was like completely clueless to like the concept of media and maybe one of the most media illiterate people I've ever met. So like the concept of like people working on a video game, like I don't even think he understood what that meant. So I didn't like. I'd see Nintendo. Obviously we knew Nintendo was a
Yeah.
Nintendo. You have that brand recognition. But the concept of even I knew Final Fantasy was a Final Fantasy series or whatever.
Yeah.
But I didn't understand SquareSoft being the developer. I didn't understand Mario being a Nintendo developed game. I didn't understand third party. Like, why is this game on multiple I didn't get that. And I
Yeah.
remember asking my
like
dad about it, and he didn't get it.
all of the boys that I grew up with were all JRPG fans, except for like one. All of us were big JRPG fans, and both of my parents are nerds. Like my dad grew up playing D&D. My parents both went to Star Trek conventions, and they taught me and all of my siblings to appreciate creative people. Because I'm not a super creative person myself, but I married a creative person, and I appreciate the people that make the beautiful things that I experience.
If you can't do it, marry into it. That's what I always say.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's exactly.
Like my wife crocheted me a plushie Haro from Gundam. Like it's a part of life. I love it.
Hell yeah, that's so sweet. And speaking of your parents being Star Trek fans, my dog's name is Riker, so I don't know what that says about.
Hell yes.
But Gordon, how about you?
I'll tell you about that later.
Hell yeah. Gordon, how about you, man? What's your methodology here with researching?
It's definitely changed over time. As a kid, I wasn't as fortunate enough to be hyper aware of development teams and all those things. I think, Joe, you and I have talked about this, but my parents were super protective growing up, so the internet scared them greatly. So did not have, when we had internet in the home, but I could not just go on the computer and look stuff up until I was like, middle school time. It just, so I could go to Cheat CC and look up cheat codes for a game, but otherwise, like, there was no game facts, there was no researching stuff. So I would be bouncing stuff off of my brother while we were playing it. He's my sounding board, and then we would go to the good old electronics boutique, and I would chat it up with the clerks there or people shopping about games. Didn't really have a lot of friends that were into games to like talk about developers and stuff. But my dad, whenever he would get us a game, he usually would get us the strategy guide with it. So that was my research. So here's Final Fantasy VII, here's the strategy guide. Here's Final Fantasy Tactics, here's the strategy guide. Here's 10, here's the strategy guide. Here's Metal Gear Solid.
Just
here's
not Final Fantasy 9.
Yeah. Yeah. Remember, they were scared of the internet. But we did have the 9, and we did have the book, but it was
same. It was horrible.
But that was mainly my research for a long time, was just the Prima guides or whatever it was guide at the time. I would bring it to school with. I remember I would bring my Star Ocean second story strategy guide in my backpack and bring it to school and read it like a big old nerd. And I would bring my Final Fantasy book to school and I would read that, and I'd be looking at the best blitzball players to recruit and all sorts of stuff like that. So had a big old shove me in a locker target on my my back.
Yeah, but you were actually cool.
I could bounce it, but yeah. So that was really my introduction. And then as I got older, I'd say I had like a PS1, PS2, PS3, and then I had like a lull where there was like maybe 2 or 3 years where I just didn't play a lot of video games. It was more kind of like a thing here. There was like towards the tail end of high school, right? I was just so busy being involved and being a teenager, right? And then college happened, and I got back into gaming, and then I went hardcore back into gaming after that, and just kind of dove in. And then from there, I noticed that strategy guides really weren't as big of a thing as they were when we were kids, right? Because you've got so many online resources. So that's like where the game facts came in. But as far as like if I'm starting a game nowadays, I usually put it out there. Or if I have a couple friends who I know play the game and love the game, I reach out to them first because I love to talk to people who are passionate about things. I feel like I get enjoyment out of it by talking to somebody who's passionate, and they get enjoyment about talking about something that they're passionate about. So like if I'm gonna start up Saga, I'm gonna be messaging Joey, before, during, and after to get his thoughts about it. So I'll reach out to people I know who like a series. If I don't know someone personally who has played the series, I'll put it online. If I get some feedback like, oh, make sure you 100% or make sure you do this or whatever, then maybe I'll say, okay, let me fire up a Game Facts guide written in 2004 by Sweet Teeth Joey or something, and
Sweet Teeth Joey, hell yeah, man, that's me.
and have it ready to go and make sure I find every item in every room, make sure I don't miss anything. But a lot of times I'll go into a blind and I'll just kind of play it based off how much fun I'm having, and if I'm like really getting into it and really enjoying it, maybe I'll pull up a guide and start digging into it more. But as far as academically, that's the crux of how I research while I'm playing. But the teams now, I get so interested in that as far as development teams, artists, people who write the story, the scenarios, the battle designers, all that. I really try to. I use this website actually called Moby Games. I don't know
Oh
if
yeah, Moby Games is solid for that.
yeah, I
Yeah.
love Moby Games to be able to look up development teams to see, okay, this person worked on this game, and then that they worked on this series of games. They're linked by this person. I do like a link analysis of the game developers to see like where they cross over and where they have the commonalities. So I do a lot of that now. But I try to keep research to a minimum because I hate spoilers. So I try to I'll never type in a character's name. I'll never do anything like that.
Yeah.
And then mechanically, like in-game mechanics, I'm big on builds. Any game where you can have builds, so a lot of Western RPGs, I'm huge on. I love optimizing, not breaking, but optimizing, and then getting so good to the point where it's optimized that you can do whatever you want. That's how optimized you are. Where I don't have to wear this goofy looking gear, whatever. But like maybe I'll start off wearing that to be optimized, but then I get really good at it, so then I break from that and do whatever I want. Kind of like Elden Ring builds or like Divinity 2. I played that game so many times and done so many different builds that now when
It's
I
so
boot it
good.
up, yeah, I can do what I know what flows together on my own. I don't have to look at any guides or anything like that. So um, that's pretty much how I look at it from a pre-game, pre starting the game, during, and then if I really get into it, style of research.
And you can still get pregnant from the pregame, so you have to be careful.
You're pregnant from the pre-game.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but first off, I think you touched on a lot of really good points that I kind of want to kind of put a little laser pointer on. But before, I started laughing really hard because I found the perfect word or phrase or whatever to prime the Virginia accent. And you said it, and I almost started dying because every single word in it was heavily Virginia accented. It was,
Let's hear it.
say the name of the Second Star Ocean game. The whole name.
Now you got me that thing
The
where like I'm
second
on a spot,
story.
like the second story.
Oh yeah, you're not, because now you're fucking you're reeling it in.
Second story.
But the way you said it was like I died. So it was so funny, dude, because it was like. It was like if I Googled what does the Virginia accent sound like, it would just be you saying that in that moment. And I'm not making fun of you or anything. I love accents.
I can't wait
like
till the VOD's live so I can go back and specifically listen to me.
it's like the ooh,
Sorry,
the ooh,
second
the ooh. Like I don't know. It's funny. Onyx knows what I mean. He probably got a little Philly in there. But yeah, I just wanted to touch on that because I love highlighting that stuff and making people feel awkward about it. But I think like the concept, because I've been playing a lot of Diablo, obviously, as you can see on this channel, basically. And I think a big part of that is builds, researching builds. It's the same kind of concept, I mean, it's also a Western RPG, sure, but I think that that's an interesting kind of parallel, and it kind of, I might be losing the subject a little bit there with it. So I do want to, I want to kind of talk a little bit how you guys think researching an RPG affects the way that you interact with the games, and you guys with these games, and you guys have sort of touched on this already. So let's talk a little bit about what your experience would be like if you jumped into a game like Divinity 2 without having known anything about it. Gordon, because you mentioned this, how do you think your experience with that game would be different if you just kind of, oh, look at this game. That game looks cool. I'm going to check it out. It's got swords and shit.
I quit it.
Yeah, okay,
The first time I played it, I got it. I played it solo. Didn't know anything about Larian really. Played it, got my ass handed to me in Fort Joy several times. Didn't really. It's like, man, there's a lot of systems going on here. There's my stats, and then there's the abilities, but then also my equipment, and not only their abilities, but then I have my attributes. So you've got like 4 different systems that are all kind of synergizing, and Fort Joy, the way I feel like this plays back on older games, that whole area serves as a tutorial, and not a tutorial of like, hey, we're going to teach you how to play the game step by step. It's like, hey, this is a place for you to get your ass kicked for a few hours and experiment with the game and find your grounding. And I wasn't used to that or accustomed to that, so I played it for the first time and quit. And then my brother during COVID reached out to me right at the beginning and said, hey, I'd seen people play this game. We can do it co-op. Those are really fun. Here's a Fextra website. Check out some stuff that they have on it. I started reading up on it. Then when we launched the game, I followed the guide to make a build. I was like, oh, okay, I'm actually doing well here. I'm actually winning some combat. I'm actually feeling powerful. I know what I'm looking for. I know where to put these points, right? I know where to spec my character. And then, you beat the game to completion, have a great time. We ran it back instantly. Started save 2. Let's do a different build. And then like halfway through, well, I want to try this. And then I started tinkering around with it, and that's when like I feel like you're like in like the RPG ether, like you're just like in it, right? You're like deep in the shits with an RPG when you get to that experimentation with in-game mechanics to see what's fun, what's not fun, what works, what doesn't work, and you're just in it. So yeah, that was my first experience, and I can see how. And I have a friend who did the same thing, played it without any research, got their butt kicked, and didn't come back. And then later, I gave them some of the Fextra Life, and we're not sponsored by them.
Not yet, soon.
But I gave them like some of the Fextra Life guides to say, hey, check this out. It'll help you greatly. And another quick game to branch on that, because I don't want to take up too much of a single spot of talking. But a game that recently came out that I think maybe the chat and people listening can maybe possibly relate to is Dragon's Dogma 2. And I feel like that is very much a game that if you go in to it enlightened by maybe watching one of those things I wish I knew when I started YouTube videos, right? Top 10 things I wish I knew. It will drastically change your experience with that game for the better. So I think it just maybe it goes on how open the game is and how much the game handholds you in that openness. I feel like is a big factor for that, because like Divinity, there's no hand holding. Endless possibilities. If you don't do it the right way, you get your butt kicked. Dragon's Dogma 2, it's an open game, but the game has a loop that it wants you to do that it doesn't tell you specifically. And if you play outside of that loop, you end up not having a great time and getting kind of, you feel like you're wasting your time doing stuff over and over again. So I feel like those are 2 examples of that. So I pass the mic back.
Yeah, I think RPGs, and I skirt around this question a lot because I just like to explore other people's experiences and philosophies about the subject, but I think RPGs in essence and fundamentally are about research. You know, I guess it spoils the rest of the podcast of how I approach the subject, but I think they are about research. I mean, you look at a series like Saga, and to me, that I've always said that series is heavily elevated by just looking at resources and understanding how the game works. And sometimes that's not exactly intuitive, and it doesn't have to be. You know, I don't know why Riker's crying. Sorry. You don't really have to know every little nuance, but the concept is there if you want to. And I think that the game wants you to explore it, whether it be inside or out. You know, and to me, that's always been the appeal of this genre, and I think it carries over across all different subgenres, types of games in the genre. You know, what you were saying about Divinity is a lot of people's experience with Baldur's Gate 3. They get capped by the systems because they're not paying attention, and then they hit up that YouTube and they're like, and you see the guy, it's like, hey guys, it's Joey here. We're going to be talking about 10 things I wish I knew about Baldur's Gate 3. Because when you're exploring those lands, they could seem really daunting. And then it goes into like a shitty intro. With that thumbnail? Yep. God, I hate it.
Okay, I'm just going to have to interrupt and say that one of my best friends is a neighbor. And I introduced him to Baldur's Gate 3, just like the concept of it. It's like, hey, ever heard about this? And then he started playing it, and he ended up finishing it before I did. And the thing is, though, is that he was horrified of playing it at any difficulty other than easy. And when the game was originally released, you weren't able to multi-class if you were playing easy mode, so you never saw anything past just speccing into a single class for the entirety of the game. And then I basically had to convince him to be okay with going into normal mode, to understand that there's a lot more stuff that he could have experienced, and taught him like what the concept of optimization was to begin with. It was his first time ever playing an RPG, and he started with Baldur's Gate 3. And now he has beaten it 6 times.
Damn.
It'll do that to you.
And
it'll do that to you.
Like it has gone to the point where now he is actually also playing Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance. Like something I didn't even like. I had talked to this guy about the game when the first version of the game came out years ago, and now he's just playing the new version. Also, actually on the topic of this, my experience of Divinity is nearly identical to yours. In that
you get humbled.
You get humbled, but I actually started with the first one. I had gotten the original Divinity, original Sin game, and I tried playing it, and I even had followed a guide a little bit just to see like these beginning things. What should you do? But I just got incredibly intimidated, not really understanding what that game was really going to be like as I was playing it. And I did play it solo. And then I just got crushed. Just gave it up immediately. And then COVID happened, started working from home. And my boss and I were like, hey, let's play a game together while we're both working from home. And we picked up Divinity Original Sin 2, and we were just doing like the asynchronous multiplayer together, talking for hours every day, just playing this game together while we were working. And that experience is now, after we both did our preparation, we looked at guides before we started, we knew what kind of build we were going to do. We knew what companions we were going to try. The concept for me now of a blind playthrough does not exist because my ADHD brain cannot allow me to play a game without at least knowing something about it. So it is prep. It is build prepping. It is taking a look at, because time is really important to me. I have kids. I want to spend time with my kids. And meanwhile, when I was a child, I would literally put the cost of a game, how much hours can I get out of a game to justify the $60 cost? Like I would tell my dad whenever he would buy me a game, I'd be like, Dad, this game is like 120 hours long. That's like 50 cents an hour. I will do whatever I need to pay for a couple of games. Just please let me get this. I would justify it that way. And then when I got a job, I would justify it by my first job. I got $10 an hour. How many hours would I need to work in order to get this game? And what is that value there? So it was monetary preparation back when I was younger, but now it's time preparation because time is a lot more important to me.
Right. And I think that ultimately comes down to intelligent consumption. You know, maybe that's a fucking butt-ass term that doesn't mean anything, but the idea of being a smart consumer or being an educated consumer comes into it. I wrote this a bit on the flowchart, but it's like efficacy versus efficiency. You have to have some kind of, like, the real answer there is never one or the other. It's not a binary to me. There's something in the middle there that...
It is a huge, beautiful, confusing spectrum.
Right. And so, you know, there's two things about this that I kind of want to discuss. And one is that obviously you don't want to run around a game like a chicken with your head cut off, and you want to have a sense of emergent discovery, exploration, etc., but nobody has the time to just get completely lost in a video game. And part of that maybe is almost a challenge to someone's intelligence. If I'm like not understanding an aspect of the game fundamentally, then is that kind of on me? And the answer is probably yes, but it depends on the systems too. I think a really good example I have here is I was playing Diablo 4 last night, and I spent like 90 minutes talking about the stats, trying to figure out stats. And I was like, I like that shit. I actually legitimately enjoy it. And because I'm a fucking sick loser who likes looking at spreadsheets. But my ultimate point here is that there was a sense of discovery in that. Like, did I know if close damage was better than vulnerable damage because it's additive rather than multiplicative? No. And so the only way I could figure that out is by experimenting with it. And the game doesn't tell you that necessarily, because maybe that might be information overload, and it might not be something that like the developers even feel like they need to communicate. So it scares the user. Right, but yes, exactly. But it also fosters experimentation. It fosters the absorption aspect rather than the time one. But again, playing into efficiency versus efficacy. Now you're wasting all this time when I can just go to maxroll.gg and look at a build and look at that kind of stuff. And so I think that if you think about it semantically, that is streamlining, right? But it's a video game. It's a role-playing video game. We sometimes forget that V word there, you know? And I think that doesn't necessarily have to mean that a video game is more straightforward than something tabletop where the whole point is to kind of like, you know, have a graph paper and like a chart.
Have a nebulous, beautiful experience.
Right. And that's another thing too. And this is, this is a good segue, because Onyx brought it up in the thing, in the chat, but it's also in the document here about
Onyx is the ghostwriter for the Google Doc.
He is. He actually wrote it. Yes, exactly. I didn't want to drop that information, but because he asked, do you feel RPG fans are too completionist minded on the whole? He says, I feel like the genre fans are scared off when they hear a game has significant missable content and think a game like requires a guide to play. And does a game like Diablo or an action RPG necessitate the use of a guide? The answer is no, but it facilitates the use of a guide. Rather, the use of a guide facilitates the experience. And I think,
whereas a game like Path of Exile requires a guide.
Exactly. And then I think sometimes, especially with modern RPGs, and maybe this is a broad strokes general statement, but I think oftentimes we lose that absorption aspect of video games as a whole when we start looking at things with that level of efficiency. I think a big part of role-playing games is the role-playing and the discovery, the ability to lose yourself in a product. I don't think that's a higher experience, but it's another facet of the experience, if that makes sense. Like, if you play Baldur's Gate 3 and you get super fucking invested in the story versus somebody who plays Baldur's Gate 3 and min-maxes the build to destroy the game and, like, you know, smash combat or speed run or whatever, I don't think that those are like a higher or lower experience. And thank you for the follow. But I think ultimately they're very different ones, and sometimes they're intertwined. They're not, but at the same time, I do think that we do lose something with a completionist mindset. I had this big thing in this document about the concept of your backlog, how much I fucking hate that concept, and how much it poisons the way that we interact with a genre that is fundamentally and generally supposed to be about spending a lot of time and figuring out your own methods and discovery
and appreciating that story and that experience.
Right. And now if Gordon is playing Xenogears because he just wants to fucking scratch it off his backlog, oh, I heard this was really good, I gotta play it, and I don't actually want to play it, but I gotta play it because literacy or whatever, you know, I hate that shit. That's like people watching classic films because I heard Citizen Kane was good, so therefore I think I have to meet a criterion. And you have to get it on the Criterion Collection, sure, but you're watching a film just for the sake of literacy or playing a game for the sake of literacy to knock something off of a list. You're never going to actually fucking meaningfully engage with it. You might copy paste, regurgitate an opinion on it, but that doesn't necessarily, like, that's just automative. There's a human aspect there that is completely fucking being lost and frayed. So I'm curious as to how you guys feel research and completionism work together. What's the dynamic there?
I feel that in different stages of life, there's more of an allowance of time that you can dedicate to a completed experience. And capitalism, baby. Next thing to consume, even if it is art, is still you're consuming it, and there's that push on you to talk about the next thing that's coming out. And I am very glad to have a community of friends and fam that are just as behind on games as I am and appreciate the ones that we do sit down and get to play. So, like, I've been able to experience these games that I'm currently playing through and just immediately share my experiences with somebody who has played it due to being able to have that direct communication on Discord to talk about your experiences. What are your shared experiences? Who is your waifu in Unicorn Overlord? Who is your husbando in Unicorn Overlord? What Nahobino build are you going to run in SMT? Or is it bad that I named my character Naho Bean O and he's never going to have gas again?
Is that racially charged?
No.
Or girdly charged?
My drug charged for that gas medication. Mm-hmm. But also my Mexican friend said, would it be offensive for me to do the obvious?
No!
We all had a laugh.
No! So, none of that.
Yeah, none of that.
None of that.
But it's so different now. Gosh, times change all the time, and my attitude on consumption of games changes so often because we have so many different stories and stuff that we could consume. Because, like, I read a whole bunch of comics. I listen over the last year and a half, I've listened to about 50 or 60 audiobooks. Like, we go through all of these different forms of media, and then we start to crunch too many things in to the limited amount of time that we have. And that's where you got to make the balance of, you have to set that balance of what is the level of things I'm going to consume on a weekly basis. Am I going to listen to 16 hours of an audiobook, 8 hours of a video game, and then 4 hours of a TV show? What's that balance? And then everything gets complicated and gets pushed forward to the idea of optimization once priorities shift in your life. I have 2 kids, I have a wife, I have a house that I need to maintain. And I get to play games on a pretty regular basis, and I'm really grateful for that. Being a dad, I still have pretty ample video game time, and I still have ample time with my children. I understand my privilege. I get to work from home and all that fun stuff. So the time investment, I feel, gets muddy when you start to enjoy different mediums.
Yeah.
It's there's so much stuff to appreciate in the world, and a lot of it's really good, and a lot of it is objectively trash, but you still love it anyways.
Try Ace.
So yeah, but yeah, there's my rant on that.
I think the completionist mindset when it comes to finishing an RPG, I feel like it comes down to a very simple want to versus have to. And if you feel you have to when you're playing a game, it, in my opinion, saps some of the joy out of the process. Because for some time I was a platinum chaser, 100% achievements chaser. Small little things here and there are fine, but when you find yourself going out of the way, spending hours and hours and hours and hours chasing these things, and you're not doing them because you want to, but you feel like you have to, it's almost like a compulsive type
Yeah.
aspect to gaming, right? So I feel like that's kind of it's scratching an itch that maybe isn't the best thing for you. Now, if you're I'm not saying if you're a trophy hunter, you're a bad person or something, whatever. But I'm saying if you're playing that game and you feel like you can't stop playing that game until you check every box on a thing, and you literally like makes you kind of feel physically ill because of it, then maybe that's not a healthy thing you're doing. But if you're playing that game and you love the game so much, you're having such a great time that you want to do all the things in it, right? You want to, man, I want to replay this game because I had such a great time, and I want to make this choice this time and that choice different time. The Mass Effect series 1, 2, and 3, and Dragon Age Origins specifically, I beat those 4 games probably like 11 times through and through because I wanted to see each little branching thing that would happen if I did one thing different. If I made an alliance with this person in the beginning of the game, that final battle, how does that impact if I help these guys who hate these guys? I'm going to betray them, but be good with them. Am I going to get some extra dialogue here at the end? Those kind of things, right? So I did those things because I wanted to see what it was. I didn't sit there and feel like, man, I have to see every bit of dialogue. Now, when I was a kid, and you only have a handful of games as a kid, so you're going to replay the same games often.
You are running that shit back on
Right.
the
Yeah.
regular.
Right. I mean,
Dry,
you're
too.
beating those games over, and that's probably why a lot of these games have such nostalgia to us that we played when we were kids because you playing it over and over again. And I had the guide, right? So I'm step by step, I'm doing everything, I'm finding everything. So that it kind of got ingrained in me from a young age, playing with that guide, right? That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to find everything in the game. You're supposed to play
Fully experience it.
play the RPG up until you get to that point where the game tells you, hey, you're coming up towards the end. If there's anything you need to do or want to do before
Here's
you
your
finish
point of
the
no
game,
return.
yep, you got the ship unlocked, the airship unlocked. So you go, finish up all the side quests and stuff, and then you start the point of no return. That was like how it was for me. Then I was chasing platinums, spending hours of my time getting platinums for things I didn't want to. And then I had my kids, and I realized I really need to value my time more as when I'm gaming. And if I simply don't want to be doing something, I am not going to force myself to do anything, because then I'm working on a game as opposed to playing a game. I'm working to fill out a sheet. I'm working for this, I hate to use the word social currency of saying,
No,
hey, I
right.
100% this game. I got the platinum in it. Now, if you're the
Yeah.
kind of person that says, hey, has anyone played this game? And you reply, oh, I got the platinum in it. That's awesome. I'm not disparaging you, whatever.
Right.
But to use those platinums or those 100% as like a badge to say like, hey, I know more about the game than you, or I'm a bigger fan of the game than you, or I've completed the game and you haven't, quote unquote. That kind of thing where it's like a look at all my toys,
Right.
kind of
Right.
aspect. That's where I kind of get like in that weird headspace. And again, I'm not judging you or saying anything pejorative. If you're
Right.
a trophy hunter, or if that's your job, like if that's your bag, then that's cool, and that's what you enjoy doing, then have at it. But if you're doing it just to compete, you know, with people online, then that's a, I don't know. That just doesn't
I
feel
am a proud two
genuine.
platinum trophy holder. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I think okay. So let me try to synthesize a little bit of what you're saying here, because I think that you captured a really good concept of the integrative nature of challenge, research, and experience here. There's like it's like a triangle or whatever, right?
Hmm.
And so it's like, games are something to experience. There's the aspect, RPGs especially, well, usually. So, you have that aspect, and then you have the research aspect. You were mentioning Dragon Age, which I think is like a really good, or Mass Effect, which is a really good Venn diagram of all these concepts, because there are sort of arbitrary goals set in place for you by like a trophy list, or by just presenting you options. Let's look at it inside the game without any kind of third party, whatever. You're able to choose different things. And so because you have all those options, you're if you like the game, the experience at Tenant, then what's going to happen is you're going to go back and you're going to want to do it again. You're going to want to do the checklist gaming, but that doesn't necessarily mean checklisting in a bad thing. You're doing it for the experience, right? And I think that there are so many reasons to explore and do a lot of stuff in RPGs that it gives you such a wide breadth of options. And I think that RPGs that do a really good job of this cover a lot of those bases, if that makes sense. Like, that's why Mass Effect to me is really, really up there. That's why Baldur's Gate 3 is really fucking good. And even the first Baldur's Gates,
I I have to share this anecdote because it's related. I'll say this is related. You said checklist, and one of the games on my list is Tales of the Abyss for the PS2. Love that game. I had about 300 hours of that game on the original PS2 on my save file. But I cannot say that I ever 100%ed that game, because every single one of my 5 playthroughs in that game, I always missed one secret move and saved over my save file.
Yeah.
One. I missed one secret art every single time I played that game. So I got 99.5% done. Just ridiculous.
Yeah, that's pain. That's pain. And so it's like, for me, it's like, if you're somewhat of a healthy person, that you're gonna be like, shit, that sucks, but whatever, it's not a big deal. If you're obsessive about it or compulsive about it, like what Gordon was saying, then you're gonna fucking freak out and then have to start another 90-hour playthrough just to get that one thing and check it off the thing off of your list. So I think we're kind of straying a little bit from the topic
Sorry.
a bit. No, that's my fault too. I kind of I should have known that this would lead us down this dark path. But it's good discussion. It's really good discussion. I just
Talk about trophies, Joey.
Yeah, you did it. You mentioned it, and you got me. In
Got you on the trophy tangent.
Trophy buzzing.
Yeah, it's like, because it's like I hate. I'm not a trophy hunter necessarily. I've always been somebody who enjoys 100% in games and doing all the things in it because I like to see all the things in it. I like to know.
Hashtag Scrimblow Squad.
I'm nosy. You know, dude, if I was a trophy hunter, I would play everything on PS1 or PS5. I would not allow myself to have anything less than 100% on it for sure.
You don't have the My Name is Mayo flat?
No, because fuck that. Like, I hate that stuff. Right. Like, maybe the game is fun. I don't know.
Nailed this.
Maybe the game is fun. I don't know, but I have no interest in it. So it's like, I'm not really going to. Like,
don't you literally just click a button?
I think pretty much. I think it's just like a press A. Right.
Oh, don't let me go into my tangent on idle games.
Buy a platinum.
The game. Yeah. So I think we talked a lot about researching mechanical aspects with no segue whatsoever. I think we talked a lot about researching mechanical aspects, and we are running a little bit close on time here. So I quickly want
to say what Onyx is saying though. It is. I think it's perfectly buying a game on a platform of choice because you know you're going to do everything in it and you want to get the platinum trophy over a system that doesn't have that. That's different than compulsively 100% of the game. So buying the game, Onyx, him buying the game on PS5 or PC because there's a platinum, he's not doing that because he compulsively has to get the platinum. It's because he's going to 100% the game.
Right. Sometimes
coincidentally get the plat.
Sometimes
he's going to get the plat or he's going to get all the trophies.
Sometimes. Well, actually, the big reason why I even started getting trophies, like no joke, is because I was collecting PS4 and 5 games because I was getting back into collecting physical, and I had so many games that I was like, oh, I might as well kind of go through these and give myself some kind of guided tour through them. And my way of setting a goal sometimes is getting a platinum. But I've only really played like 2 games that I didn't really like for the platinum, and I won't do that again. You know what I mean? Like, I platinum Code Vein, and I was like, ugh. I hate this, you know. And I was playing Lies of P, and Lies of P is fine, but I was like, I should probably get the platinum because I like getting Souls like platinums. And I was like, I don't give a fuck, I don't care, you know.
Would Code Vein have been better if you hadn't gotten the platinum?
Maybe because, but I also wouldn't have seen more of the game. So we're talking a bit about like the exploration aspect of RPGs here, and so. Yeah. I got to see everything in it. I had a very, okay. So for example, if I just cared about the trophy, I would have used the summons, you know, and I would have co-opted basically through the game, but I don't. I wanted to do those boss fights just solo without the NPC summons because I wanted to sweat.
Bigger balls than me.
Right. And it's not like oh, look how much better I am at this game than you. That's the experience that I wanted to have with the game. I wanted to get some kind of juice out of it. And that's just like, but yeah. Anyway, sorry. So let's just quickly bring up a subject here that we didn't really get a chance to talk about too much, but I'm really curious as to how you guys feel about it. So we talked a lot about the mechanical aspect of research, but we didn't talk too much about the academic aspect of research for video games, right? So how do you guys think understanding more about the game's production or the game's creative team or whatever affects your journey through the game? So like, I think a good example of this is either the Xeno series, like you have the Xenoblade, Xenosaga, Xenogears kind of games, and how different those are, I guess mechanically and whatever, but how the big through line of the creative process through there. Another one is Saga, because, you know, if you understand a lot of the creative impetus of Saga, you understand a lot more of the gameplay mechanics. So I'm curious as to how you guys think, researching the creative team, seeing what their history is like, what their, LinkedIning, if you will. Gordon kind of talked about this. He kind of described it as LinkedIning a developer. So Gordon, I'll pass this to you because you mentioned it a little bit. How do you think that research affects the way that you interact with the game, if at all?
It gives an element of pedigree, right? And we got the dog games, so we got to talk about pedigree.
Yeah.
It's like, if it's I think as humans, right? We have biases, inherent biases, all sorts of things that are built into us, right? So like if you've got an affinity, I should say, for this instead of bias. If you have an affinity for a developer, whether it's a writer, the artist, composer, what have you, I got a perfect example. Sakaguchi, or not Sakamoto, loves Sakimoto, right? He was the composer for the game that came out recently. That was the main reason I even played the game in the first place. It ended up not really being. I hear Astria Ascending. So chat, if you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
It had great art. The music was awesome. Played the game and I was just like, man, like, how does someone who have all this great supporting staff everywhere
Just
come out
do
like
this
this? It's because
so poorly.
you've got to have the actual designers, right? They didn't have the designers in place for it. They didn't have the systems fully fleshed out. They've got a new game coming out here soon that looks interesting. It looks like maybe they've learned on some of their stuff, but like, so I feel like that is a great example, right? Of I researched the game and found out, oh, Sakimoto's doing the score of this game. Like, it's got to be a big deal. It's got to be good, right? So that I jumped into it based off of that. So I feel like that's a pretty good example of how does that impact your experience? Because I probably would not even played that game if that wasn't on my radar from that. So I feel like that's one lens that you can look through it of as far as how the research affects is like, oh, am I actually going to play this game or not?
Yeah.
But then when you're in the middle of playing it and let's say uh, Nojima, right? It's hard for me to play a lot of Nojima stuff lately and not get Kingdom Hearts coded from some of the stuff because it's like I know Nojima's working on this and I know that Kingdom Hearts is like in stamped on his brain. So I feel like in a lot of these writings I can like play the game and like something will happen and I'll say that was a Kingdom Hearts moment or something, right?
Right.
And if anybody here in the chat or listening is a huge Kingdom Hearts fan, I just want you to know I hate you. No, I'm joking. It's
Same.
fine. This series isn't for me, but it's a fine game. But I just it's not my style, right? So when I see it, I even made the Nojima chart where I looked at all the games that he was involved in before Kingdom Hearts and after, and they all have that Kingdom Hearts lens to them. I feel like after he made Kingdom Hearts, it's like he never got that taste out of his mouth. And even Final Fantasy X, you could see it and shades of it in there. But I feel like that is something, right? Like, so if I know he's involved in something, I feel like maybe when I'm playing it, I'm going to have those predispositions of when moments pop up and be like, okay, that was a goofy ass Kingdom Hearts moment in this game or something like that.
Right. So I think that brings up a really good point. And Justin, I want to ask you this question is, do you think that there is a bias that understanding these kinds of things, like, do you think that bias of understanding, well, oh, this is a Nojima game, so I don't think I'm going to like it, or this is a Sakimoto game, so I'm interested in checking it out because I like this. Do you think that could be limiting in some ways?
In some cases, it's already been limiting to me before, like just being turned off by a specific game just because I knew who worked on it and didn't like something that they had made before and just decided to drop it. And then having gone back and going to go play it after the fact and be like,
my God, okay, what is this? Oh, geez, this is incredible. Why did I wait to do this?
Right.
So, but yeah, like a not a JRPG example of this is Pony Island, the PC game that ended up turning into like this super creepy ARG thing. Then I was like, Pony Island's whatever. And then Inscription happened, and Inscription was my game of the year that it came out. And I was just sitting there thinking to myself, it's like, wow, I did not like the game that they had played last time, that they had made last time, but this one just absolutely threw it out of the park for me. Or it's that little scenario in which somebody says that there's a specific series by a specific team. Let's say Tales.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the specific set of directors there, and you're going to start having to split hairs in between the what Tales team did this specific game. Do you like the Tales games from the Tales team, or do you like the Tales game from the they had 3 different Tales teams, or sometimes, and people would put them on a different hierarchy and stuff like that. And just understanding that it can be limiting, but you also have to get rid of some of those gut responses of being disgusted by something that you didn't like from their previous catalog, and just go for it. And then sometimes you find gems.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right. And I actually want to bring this full circle because I think that this is a really good point. And I think it kind of puts a bit of at least it puts my point on the topic at hand for now. And it's that you brought up Unicorn Overlord. Riker is just sobbing. I don't know what's wrong with him. Sorry if you guys hear this. Stop it. But I want to bring it full circle with Unicorn Overlord because its creative process is contingent on Matsuno and the Ogre series for sure. The game's gameplay would not really exist without the inspiration from that, for sure. And it was definitely, I mean, whatever. But the thesis here is that in modern times, that influence, that inspiration is not important. Like, it wouldn't be recognizable to modern audiences. It shows that research, whether it be academic or mechanical, academic in the sense knowing that Matsuno was the creative lead for those games, and mechanically as in the game plays like Ogre Battle, you know? So it shows that maybe research is just self-indulgent and ultimately unimportant in some ways here, because Unicorn Overlord was commercially and critically lauded, not because of its pedigree, but because of the product that it ultimately was.
It was a good game.
It's a good game. And yeah, that might be because of the creative inspiration. It might be because those people did their homework and found out like what works and what doesn't. It might be a good game because you can research it and look at all those crazy builds and crazy gambit things and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately, the game is a good game because it leaves that open for you. I think anyway. And I think that concept is almost timeless. You know, we're 40 years into video games as a medium. It's still kind of burgeoning and new. We're still trying to figure it out and write our history for it. But at the same time, research is ultimately a heady, selfish act. And I don't mean that critically. I'm not trying to be pejorative with it, but like if you look at it, that's what those kind of things does. Or that's what the whole concept of research is. It sounds anti-intellectual, but that's essentially what it is. And I think when we remember that games are products, the concept of research is so subtle compared to a lot of other aspects of what games are. So I'm wondering, just to quickly wrap things up, and Justin, we'll start with you. I'm curious if you have anything else that you'd like to say to just kind of put a bow on this subject and maybe challenge your own sensibilities about research or challenge other people's. Whatever. Put a bow on it, baby.
appreciate the time that you have with video games. Appreciate the time and choice to make the decision on whether or not you're going to strimbo or whether or not you're going to chill. Appreciate that the internet is out there willing to give you the information that you need to make something that could be an incredibly obtuse experience into a generally nicely tied up, streamlined experience if that's all you need. And appreciate that the world is accepting of difficulty options in some cases, but also the people that whine about things being too hard, you can also just choose to get good. I've seen people with plenty of challenges in life be 100,000 times better at video games than I am. So that's about it.
True. Hell yeah. Gordon, how about you?
I would say if a game is build heavy and mechanically heavy, dabble in a little research. Make the experience a little bit better for yourself, because you may end up just quitting and not having that chance to come back a second time. Like if I never went back and tried Divinity again, that game would have been lost to time to me. Another thing is rely on your friends. If you don't have
Absolutely.
friends that are into some of these games that you're trying or you're playing, don't be afraid to go out there and put yourself out there for some communities to some of these games. It can be scary. It can also be a little intimidating when you think about sometimes there's people who are the historians or the experts and they just want to one up you and make sure you know how smart they are and kind of put you down. That is a very small fraction of a lot of communities out there, and a majority of communities, even the toxic bad ones, there's plenty of good people in there that will make these experiences much better for you. Um, it reminds me of, like, I think there was that article written about Zelda where it's the best multiplayer game whatever ever because everyone was doing it at the same time, sharing tips, all this stuff, whatever. There's no actual multiplayer in Tears of the
Right.
Kingdom, but it's that kind of thing where it's like, if I'm playing a game and I talk to a friend about it, they can they can help me, and also you can lean on them for them to say, like, okay, hey, maybe you should research some builds, or hey, no, go into this completely blind. Like Joey was telling me, don't look anything up about Xenogears before you play it. Just go into it blind. Don't spoil stuff for yourself. Don't give yourself any expectations. Just go into it, right? Because I feel like it's more of a straightforward experience. But like if it was something that was like bit like Diablo 4, right? If I was playing that for the first time, which I have played, but I'm sure he would say something like, "Hey, maybe check out some builds. Maybe check out some different how some skills interact with each other, different things like that." So rely on your friends, rely on some communities, join some communities. Don't be scared. Keep talking about games and get those. Use that form of communication between friends as the way to initiate research, because you can spoil some stuff for yourself or you can't, and your friends maybe will give you a good tip whether you should look into something or not. So that's my advice or my bow to put on researching for that.
Hell yeah, the social aspect of games is research in and of itself. You
Yeah.
know, that's what I think. You know, like I mentioned that a bit in chat. I was trying to be like devil's advocate conversationalist about it, just to juice a topic with Dorman there. But yeah, I think that's really important. You know, the RPGs have always been a collaborative thing. It doesn't mean that if you play games completely independently and selfishly or whatever, it's more or less, I guess, valid. But you know, that is a huge thing, and I think that makes video games really fun, and I think that makes RPGs really fun. So yeah, that's a fucking great. That's such a good way of being optimistic without being a toxic positivist, and I love that. That's why I love Gordon. That's why we all stand Game Dead 7 here. Um, but sorry if we didn't get to discuss everything that you guys wanted to. I tried to keep this fairly like tight on time or whatever, but
It went a little long. That's all right.
yeah, but you know, we do what we can do. But before we head out and sign off, just really quick, tell us where we can find you guys on the internet, and Justin, we'll start with you.
TS Roland on Discord if you want to chat with a real big mech and JRPG nerd.
Hell
Talk to
yeah.
me about Project Moon.
Fuck yeah. And Gordon, how about you?
You can find me at GameDad7. The 7 is VII, like Roman numeral, like Final Fantasy 7. I'm on Twitter. You can find me on there or on YouTube again. Probably gonna start making some more clips and content on there. So, but I'm not like a YouTuber. But if you just want to see some cool stuff on there, but mainly find me on Twitter.
Hell yeah. Anything else that you guys just quickly want to say before we peace out?
Love y'all. Bye.
Cool. All right. Well,
Come back.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed this, and thank you guys for starting a little bit later and being patient with the start of the stream and all that kind of stuff. Always love chatting with you boys. I it's funny because I always say this when the conversation goes well, but like I didn't realize how long we were going for. Like that shit just flies by. It flies by.
It does.
But a lot of good shit to say.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm kind of like, oh shit, we haven't really touched on everything and blah 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 and all that.
Just move to next time. It's fun.
Right. But yeah, I had a lot of fun, and I appreciate you guys a lot, and I would definitely love to have you all back again and do some more deep dives. So thanks everybody in chat for hanging out. You guys were lovely. Again, sorry that we didn't, if you guys want to watch, if you want more chat interaction with Strimmer, I'll be doing Diablo Immortal, I think, in about an hour, and I gotta make some dinner and take this dog out and all that kind of stuff. So until then, stick around, wait up, and give Gordon.
The game is wash your ass.
Yo, I washed my ass before I started the stream, man.
Every day.
Dude, bidet living.
Or
Bidet is that needs to be the next RPG topic. Is like why you should use a bidet. Yeah, for sure. Real ones, no. Real ones, no. Anyway, love you guys. Love everybody in chat. Thanks for hanging, and we'll see you next Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We got Treaky and a surprise guest, so it's going to be awesome.
Hell yeah.
All right. Take care, y'all.
Night.
We're going to be rating Julia. See you guys later.
Bye.